How you doing today? Well, where do I start on this video? Hello, Amy. How are you? I'm going to take a moment to kind of ease into this. It wasn't really an anticipated video, and I have so many different things on my mind that I'd like to talk about. I suppose first I should start my little voice recorder here because then I can actually have a copy of this recorded as well. I'm going to guess that this video I'm going to guess that this live cast was not promoted by YouTube in any way, and that most likely it was buried from some of the feeds. I don't exactly know how the algorithms work, but I do know that when you talk about a like COVID or vaccines or any of those keywords, it triggers the algorithms and they basically push it to the bottom of the pile, which puts people in two camps. Either you talk about it Either you talk about COVID based on the mainstream model and what's repeated over and over, or you choose to speak out and hope that when you have your own opinion, you are not silenced because of it. So I don't really have a lot of notes or a specific, let's just say I don't have a particular aim for this video as far as, a direction that I'm going to follow. I wanted to start off by just, you know, I think I want to specify the reason why I'm doing this as a live cast first. I'm doing it as a live cast because I know it will at least reach a few people, just in case it ends up getting deleted or YouTube censored. I realize that a lot of these things are changing now. You're able to finally talk about something like saying, oh, this virus might have come from a laboratory leak in Wuhan. I mean, it's such common sense when you look at the fact that there's a coronavirus laboratory in Wuhan. From the beginning, we've known this was a possibility. Yet, if you talked about that, you would be kicked off any mainstream media you'd be made fun of. If you get kicked off of YouTube or anywhere else. And over the last year and a half, we have seen such a destruction of our freedom of rights under the guise of protecting each other. And I have really had a hard time with it. And the part I've had a hard time with is the ambivalence I have about what's actually going on right now. I've talked with a lot of people about the COVID-19 situation. I mean, shit, every single person I've fucking talked to, it has to come up eventually, whether a person's coming off Craigslist to buy something that you have and you have to clarify whether you wear masks, or whether or not the vaccination issue comes up and two people get completely divided over it because they don't want to talk about the topic. The people who have their opinions made up, their minds made up, seem to be extremely stuck in the way that they think and refusing to even budge. I personally have very much changed a lot of how I feel over the last year about this. And it's not based on a political change. It's based on new information coming in. When COVID first began, this thing had us all curious. What's going on? When China locked down, a lot of us forget how this started out, but China locked down for a long period of time. The thought on a lot of our minds, people who follow world politics, was, well, shit. If China's willing to shut down their businesses and their manufacturing, there must be something going on they really don't want to get out in the world or to get out in their nation. And then as I watched this unfold around the world, I saw how many different people were taking different precautions. So naturally, I took the same precautions, did what I was told to do. And to an extent, I followed protocol. Even though right when lockdown started, I moved out, drove my bus out, and we went camping. At the very beginning when this happened, I still at that point had told myself that it's absolutely ridiculous to sit at home. We wanted to go out and do things. I don't care if I have to go through a gas station to get gas while I'm on a trip. It's not like I'm worried about infecting everybody through a gas station. And I had my suspicions that this was as dangerous as people claimed it to be. Now I'm stuck in this mentality that I'm suspicious about the reasoning behind the vaccinations, I'm suspicious, not the reasoning, but rather the reasoning behind them being pushed so fervently when they are not FDA approved yet. And when any other vaccine you take has a long term effect, for example, even if you still can carry the virus or shed it while you have it, you don't expect to get a measles shot and then get measles the next year. So I've had extreme skepticism about whether I want to go in and get a shot in my arm that I feel might not be well enough tested for my personal taste. But if I dare say that, I'm ridiculed. I'm either applauded by people who are like, yeah, you shouldn't get it. Don't get it. It's horrible. It's the number, it's the mark of the beast. It's got a microchip, or it's this or that. It's going to kill you 2 years down the road. I don't necessarily believe any of that. But I do have common sense enough to question whether I'm going to put a pharmaceutical in a needle and stick it into my body. Part of the reason why I'm vaccine hesitant is not because I think that there's some underlying, let's just say, nefarious plan to microchip everyone or anything like that. It's more along the lines of pharmaceutical industry wants to make as much money as they possibly can. And they have been very about this from the beginning. Even a year ago, I actually didn't really have anything against guys like Bill Gates. I thought, hey, he's just a philanthropist. He's weird. He does his thing. I don't pay much attention to billionaires. But when I found out that he had actually actively blocked the vaccine from being shared with other countries, and actively blocked opening the patent up to make generics, that disgusted me, and I realized he's just like everyone else. I mean, I always knew he was a greedy shitball, but that kind of set it in stone. But as this unfolded, I started wondering, how much of this is profit motivated, how much of it is control motivated. A lot of people like to call it the plandemic. I don't believe that. I do not believe it was planned. I believe that there are many people who really believe that humans have the capability to plan everything that happens to us. And I know the reason why we want to believe that to be true. It's because it's much more comfortable than believing that the ship is not being steered by anyone. What we have is, in reality, a lot of different opportunists. In other words, rather than thinking that you have to believe in one grand, one world conspiracy for a new world order, think of several smaller conspiracies. The man in one country doesn't necessarily give a shit what the leaders in the United States want. They want their own domination over their own lands and their own places. So billionaires and politicians might make deals behind closed doors to say, hey, I'll I'll rule this kingdom, you rule that one. Sure, plenty of that goes on. But there's a bigger question about, I think that there's something that's overlooked when people think this was planned as a pandemic. The fact that anybody who had adequately researched human nature would know that A, as soon as this happened, we would lock down, meaning that manufacturing would shut down. That costs some people money, but it makes billionaires money. So it's definitely something to be suspicious of. But the bigger thing is that it also gives people time to sit at home, think about their shitty jobs, their shitty lives, and how fucked over they are by their government, and decide to do something else with their lives. B, it gives people time to protest or create civil unrest for one side or another, whatever your purpose may be. People are out there and they're angry. And when you anger people, it destabilizes society. There's nothing more successful to the status quo than keeping society stable. So the only reason for them to release a virus would be to depopulate, as some say. There's two sides to that. A, this virus is too weak to depopulate, so it's pointless to think that it was used as a weapon. B, even if this virus was something more intense, depopulation just creates less workers. Not just less eaters, but less workers. And less workers means less production. Less production is less money for the billionaires. They want things to keep rolling along smoothly. So this is where I get to the point where I'm talking about my fucking ambivalence here. I don't know what to believe anymore. I feel so confused. And I've never felt this way, this intensely in my life. If I'm unsure of something, usually I can say, well, I just don't know, and just walk away from it. But in this case, there's health at stake. Should I get a vaccine or shouldn't I? Should I believe the guy who's telling me it's poison, it's going to kill me in 2 years? Or should I believe the person who's saying, hey, common sense says just go out and get it because it's going to protect others? So I almost did, and then I started hearing these cases about the Delta variant, quote, Delta variant, which many people don't even believe in. So I do believe that the Delta variant is real. I just don't believe they have the statistics they're claiming, because every person who has COVID is not tested for the Delta variant. It's a random test, and it's a more complicated test that's done. There's some weird shit going on with the testing and the claims made and the numbers, and it seems like the CDC is consistently bullshitted us, and that's why it's bothersome. I want to believe authority. I want to believe that they're telling us the truth. But there's part of me, even as a rational adult, that says something fishy is going on here. And I think that's okay, and that's legitimate, because I have been lied to many times by those in charge. Why would this be any different? Then there's this channel that I watch, Dr. Sunil Dand. He's a medical doctor, and he made a video talking about vaccination rates, where he said that 75% of all the people in one ICU in Pittsburgh, I believe, had already had the vaccine. And his video was pulled by YouTube. Then he made another video saying I was censored. The backlash by the people and by him got his video reinstated. But he wasn't making any claims that weren't already in the media. It's just that people don't want to hear certain things. They don't want to hear that you can actually still get sick and still transmit the disease while you have the vaccine. Now here's where it gets interesting, because it doesn't mean that you won't get sicker if you don't have it. I do believe that the vaccine protects those who are vulnerable against the worst of it. So there's two sides to this point I want to make. Number one, I believe that elderly and people who are immunocompromised who can get vaccinated absolutely should. But B, I realize that it doesn't work very well against the Delta variant, and also that younger people have good enough immune systems to where they should not be bothering to try to give this vaccine to young, healthy adults or children when they should be sent overseas. The patent rules should be removed so they can make generics, because I do believe that this vaccine could save lives overseas. I do believe that if there were countries out there who had never even seen one vaccine, could get at least enough for their most vulnerable population, at the very least, their population that works with the public the most. Even if you're still shedding it, perhaps you're shedding less. I guess I should make a side note here. If a person is vaccinated and they're young and healthy, and then they get the virus, and they don't know they're sick because it's mild, they can still shed that virus. And therefore, the people who don't have any, realization that they're sick will continue to go to work. I hate to say this, it almost makes more sense that people get sick naturally. Then their immune system is much more likely to recognize that actual variant next time around, rather than the vaccine, which there was a study showing that it was only 42% now. The Moderna was only 42% against Delta. Somebody said that, and then they got a strike against their channel. Who knows if YouTube's going to mess with this? But these are facts. These are recorded facts. I don't repeat anything just because some YouTuber says it, or because some random person or even some doctor I've never heard of from some other country says, oh, by the way, COVID's fake, and all the vaccines are going to insert you with nanobots, and they're going to, take over your mind. There are a million things that people believe about this. But my background with biology and science and technology may be limited, but I do my best to educate myself. And the claims that are being made often on the conspiracy side are bullshit. And all they do is just hold back society from moving forward. There are vaccines that are useful. There are some first you get a vaccine and you're pretty much protected for life against sickness. But then there's others like this one where now they're already talking about boosters. So everybody starts to get suspicious. Everybody starts to feel a little bit iffy about what to do. And like I said before, those who have already been vaccinated are likely to be in complete defense of the vaccine. Those who haven't are likely to be against it. I'm in the middle. I support it. I just haven't taken it yet. I just don't know what to think anymore. So thank you everybody for joining tonight. I probably should be doing something more productive like cleaning my bus, but I just want to stop and say thank you to all my subscribers, viewers, especially my patrons. It's fucking awesome to see people who care, and it's good to have you all here. So, who haven't I said hello to? Meridian says there's no algorithm anymore, all fake and censored to push the big money and making channels. That's true to an extent. They have algorithms on YouTube that basically pick out controversial terms and topics and even listen to the words that are spoken, and then it's flagged for further review if they think it's an issue. But who knows? Meridian says, I got the vaccine 2 months ago and I've been sick ever since. That sucks. That makes me not. Well, thanks for the props. Now I want to go get it. No. About 3 hours ago, my son and I, my oldest son, he's 26, and he said, "Well, I'm gonna go out and get the vaccine." And we talked for a little bit. He said, "Yeah, all my bandmates. He plays in a Grateful Dead cover band. Awesome. They're really good. They're called Cats on a Tin Roof. You should check them out. They played a couple shows, and the guy, everybody else in the band has the shot. And he said, well, everybody else was like, dude, just basically get it. And he was saying there's certain places you won't be able to go. And I said, this is exactly my point. I will never be guilt tripped into it, nor told where I can go to get it. If I get it, it will be for the reasons of the science behind it and my own feelings about it. But the fact that I kind of laughed at the vaccine passport idea before, thinking they'll never actually try to implement it, but they really are. And hey, I was wrong. I was wrong on a lot of things, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But from the beginning, I've had my suspicions this would be taken advantage of and used, to benefit just a few. And the fact that you say you got sick, you've been sick ever since. I don't know what to think of that. Of course, that's the thing. There are so many subjective opinions. So here's the thing. My neighbor came by the other day. He's about my age, I'd say. Maybe I've never asked him. I think he's probably a little younger, maybe around 40, 41. I'm 45, so we hang out sometimes, play records, listen to music a couple times. He has been the most safe and over the top paranoid person. I mean, I know, in all respect to him, he's probably doing the right thing. But from the very beginning, him and his whole family have worn masks. He has 2 young kids that come over to play with my kids a few times. Even when they went in the swimming pool, they wore their masks. They were very dedicated to masks. Both parents got vaccinated, one with Moderna, one with Pfizer. I hadn't seen him in about a week and a half, and I saw him walking by, taking a walk the other day with masks on while they were walking. And my first thought is, outdoors, really? Well, he said, yeah, they got it. They got COVID, and they all got really sick. The kids did better, but the parents were sick for like 10 days. And he said something to the effect of, yeah, I wish the CDC would be honest with us. And this is coming from a dude who follows the rules, a liberal person like myself. This is the thing. If you have any question about the vaccine, people assume that you're like anti-vax, and that's just not the case. I'm just not sure about the science. And why is that censorable? Why is it that people can't talk about their suspicions? When did it become there's only one way to do things? And this is angering people, not just on the right, because I've looked through the comment sections on some of these videos. Everybody's blaming the conservatives. Oh, it's Florida and it's Texas. It's like, look, I know conservative states tend to be a little more rambunctious. That's okay. That's in their nature. There's nothing wrong with that. You can't use that as an excuse to say it's all their fault. Just like you can't blame unvaxxed for the variants that are going around. Such a complicated thing. The media uses so much hyperbole to propagate and, uses our anger against us, basically. Creates anger and division where there isn't. It's basically a distraction. But one of the complicated issues about this is that a lot of people, and this is funny to me, they start talking about HCQ or hydroxychloroquine, or they talk about ivermectin as being these other solutions. Like, why aren't they talking about this? And I'm like, look, how about we just back away from the whole pharmaceutical industry for a minute and realize that somebody always has a vested interest in selling you a pill. There are other options. Reishi mushrooms have an amazing immunomodulating effects. I was looking at a National Health Institute like research paper the other day, and I shared it with a bunch of people. It's like these are the scientific studies that were done on these mushrooms, and they show that they may be extremely beneficial in helping coronaviruses. I mean, this is nobody. People just want to move. They're like, I don't trust the pharmaceutical industry and their horrible vaccines. I'm going to take this other pharmaceutical. I don't know. It's just something that just kind of occurred to me. But the whole thing based on expertise, trusting institutions, trusting one medicine to work for something else, knowing the right dosage, and then knowing whether males and females react differently to it. Of course, you can't talk about that because males and females are exactly the same. There's absolutely no physical differences between us. Um, so, trust is the glue that binds society. This is why we have these problems right now because nobody seems to be able to trust each other. It sucks. It really sucks. I'm going to say hello to everybody here quick. Hello, Robin. Troy says he's going to lose his job over time. Still better than losing something I can never get back. Lose your job over what? Are you talking about Troy? He says he's going to lose his job over this. Are you talking about over getting the vaccine or what in particular? I'm not sure the context there. Cat I Am says CDC is a private company, not government. Is that true? I'm not sure. I've never even thought about it. You're probably right. I wouldn't be surprised. Probably like, what was it, 15 years ago, I was reading a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island. It's like this thick. It's about the Federal Reserve and how our fucked up money system really works. And that's when I learned that the Federal Reserve was a private company. It wasn't even part of the government. I'm like, wait a minute. The people that print our money aren't even part of the government? But there's another angle to this that is important to say, to cover before I move on here. Sometimes when agencies or organizations aren't part of the government, that's better. Because when an agency is part of the government, that means that they're subject to the same governmental regulations, but also the same bureaucracy and the same lobbying efforts that just get pushed through. Basically, it's a voice for the government. And the government, which is supposed to answer to the people, now expects the people to answer to them. We do what they say, right? Instead of choosing for ourselves. And America's a burly fucking nation. We don't put up with bullshit. I mean, I don't care if you're a conservative or a liberal or anywhere in between. Everybody, there's a lot of people out there who can stand up for themselves and what they believe. There are also a lot of fucking weenies that just can't handle anything out there. I had no idea just how weak people could get until I saw some of just the way people have been talking over the last 10 years, like the whole idea of safe spaces, all this talk about, all the right-wing talking points where they're always complaining about liberals. I scoffed at them for years. And then I started seeing the types of people they're talking about. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Not all of us liberals are like that. We're not all in support of this or this. We don't all do the woke culture shit. And my point of bringing that into it is because we're all in this together. This is our nation. And so when you make wearing a mask or taking a vaccine about politics right off the bat without actually asking a person or understanding why a person feels the way they do, it does nothing to solve the problem. It's bullshit. It's fucking lazy thinking. And this goes to the liberals as well. If you see somebody who's not wearing a mask and you instantly judge them as being a Trump supporter or, some sort of fucked up conservative, think twice. That might be me. I mean, I'm not either of those things. I'm a person who thinks for myself, and a lot of us are. And I'm really tired of the governmental tyranny bullshit. At the same time, I'm also tired of the people who complain about the government tyranny bullshit. The ones who just sit there and talk about how they're taking our rights away. In some ways they are, but complaining about it on the internet doesn't solve that problem. Fucking do something about it. Do it the right way. You have to work through legislature to change these things, unfortunately. You can't just go mob the Capitol. It doesn't work. We live in a day and age where the military is way too strong. The government's way too strong. The people, yes. The people could rise up and actually stand up for their rights as a whole, but they won't. They just won't because they're too passive. Way too passive. So I'm going to go through the comments. Ready? Angelo says, turn up the audio. Oh, I can't. I can't turn up the audio. Sorry. If the audio sucks, I apologize. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Well, Troy, if you said about the vaccine, if you're getting fired over the vaccine thing, it depends on where you work, but I would say that you should legally have a religious option to opt out. Um, it's one I've considered using if I had to. But there's also Privacy Act, and I don't want to say this, but some people have been bad people by printing vaccine cards offline and making their own. Now this is a huge thing, and now it's illegal. The FBI says they're investigating, and it's bad. I was talking to somebody about this today. I was saying, would you feel guilty doing that? Would you feel bad? They said they'd feel horrible if they were lying by carrying around a fake vaccine card. And I said, I feel like I'm a very honest person, a caring person. I care about other people. I'm courteous, considerate, but I wouldn't feel guilty. I really wouldn't. Only because I know that that person next to me who's vaccinated, why do they care if I'm not vaccinated? And they could also be shedding this virus. It's so damn confounding. I've been trying to tie all these ends together because it's been a year and a half, and I'm really trying to get these answers because I want to do the right thing, but there's no way I'm going back to lockdowns and wearing masks and making sure I get shots every 6 months to protect against something that really only affects people who are compromised. And unfortunately, America is fat, and obesity is a huge factor in a lot of people who are sick. I hate to say it, it's just a fact. And America's not talking about that. I'm skinny as a bone, so, I'm not really too worried about that issue. But who knows? Maybe I don't respond well to it. I'd be eating my words if I got sick as a dog tomorrow, and oh no, I got COVID and I, fucking was in the hospital from it or something. That would suck. It would be absolutely horrible. I just don't expect that to happen. As in my age group, it's not very common. But the infection rate of this virus is so strong that naturally it spreads so far by now that every case is noticed. Everybody sees a person laying in the hospital and thinks that could be me, and it starts a panic, a worry, and I realized I was way too paranoid at the beginning. But my biggest concern is what it's doing to the kids. I've heard parents who are angry that some schools don't require masks for kids, and they're talking about pulling their kids out of school because other kids aren't wearing masks. Whereas there's other parents who are pulling their kids out of school because the kids are wearing masks, or they are forcing them to wear masks. There's such a battle about what people think is the right thing to do because people are confused. And this anger should really wake people up to the fact that it's bleeding through into the population, that people are angry and it's going to be pretty bad. I can't turn up the audio, Angelo. I'm sorry. It's just a cell phone. It's all I've got. I mean, I could get closer, but I'm only going to be here for a minute anyway. I'm probably going to leave in a minute. I'm sorry if it's not working. Let me see. I'm reading the comments here. Yeah. I'll try to get closer. I'm using my cell phone. It's the only way I can live stream. I'm sorry if the audio is not loud enough. You got a volume too, right? I would turn it up if I could. Robin says, I'm guilty of judging people without masks are conservatives. Yeah, they're not. They're really not. I have a lot of people I've talked to who are liberals who just it's not about whether to, I wear a mask in a crowded space. If I'm in a crowded area, I put my mask on. If I'm in Home Depot like last night, I put it on when I was at the cashier, at the checkout, and when I was going in. And when I passed a bunch of people, but it was empty pretty much. I didn't feel the need to wear a mask. And it's been shown that outdoors this virus does not spread. If it does, it's very slightly. And therefore, there's no real point in wearing a mask outdoors. And I feel bad when I see people jogging or riding bikes or even driving in their cars alone with a mask on. It makes no sense to me. And I think, I understand safety, but this isn't smallpox here, you know. At the beginning, I thought it might kill 3% or 5% of the people because we didn't know. Now from what I'm seeing, less than 1%, and even less when you account for obesity or, age. And I don't think the kids should be a factor in this because they may spread it, but they're not getting sick and dying at any rate. Like I talked with my brother the other day, and he was disagreeing on this issue because his neighbor has a 7-year-old who's in the ICU or at the hospital at least, and I said that's not scientific. That's the problem. We're all relying on these one studies or this one person we know, or so and so got it, or this group of people got it. None of us really know, but sometimes you have to go on a little bit of common sense. Ask yourself, how many people have been infected in your friends group? How bad has it been? What's it like? And decide for yourself whether you feel the need to get a shot. It should be that simple. It really should. All right. Um, where was I here? Oh, hello, Eric. It's good to see you, my friend. Meridian says, stay on for a while. The audio is a little quiet, but not that bad. I can hear you fine. It's probably just the stupid microphone and the way the thing's designed. But yeah, indoors only stores. Yes, exactly. Meridian says, do you believe in the science being reported about this issue? I don't trust 100% in science, but I believe like 90%. This is exactly really the main point of my whole discussion here. I trust science, and for the first 6 months when this broke out, I was arguing to everybody, trust the science, because that's all we have. And it is. If you believe the conspiratards on YouTube who always have an answer for everything 5 minutes after something happens, that's not going to help us. It gives us quick, easy answers, but I had to wait for a year to really figure out what was going on here, even to confirm that it was probably a laboratory leak, which should scare people because that's why it's probably so contagious. Because they work to increase contagion in order to do gain-of-function research, which is what they were doing at the Wuhan laboratory. Anyone who's still not aware of this, it was literally called the Wuhan Institute of Virology Coronavirus Study. That's what they do. The coronavirus is in the name. But not only that, but in November, a few workers there got sick and were sent to a local hospital. And they believe that might have been where it started. But here's the thing. China today issued something that they were disappointed that the WHO was still supporting the idea of an investigation into that theory because they thought it was wrong. China has the fucking gall to say it's racist to call out a lab leak. Fuck those guys. It's complete bullshit. The CCP is so scared of looking bad. They always have. I mean, if you thought US had an image problem, China is the worst when it comes to like wanting to look good. They have the 50 Cent army, a whole internet army of like 2 million people who just surf the internet and look for anything against China and vote it down or comment as if they're Americans. They have they set up a bunch of fake accounts. One of them was from a Swiss doctor who was claiming that the WHO should not be harsh to China, basically. And a bunch of vloggers or journalists sought it out and said, well, who are you? Which doctor are you? And where do you, practice? And basically finding out that China was just behind the whole thing. It was like this propaganda campaign using a fake doctor they hired. Then they used this ad in their, propaganda tools. But the US does the exact same thing. Propaganda, propaganda, propaganda. I mean, it's all we do. And, God damn it. I'm a peace-loving person. I'm a fucking hippie-minded person. I like to chill. I like to relax, go listen to music. I don't want to talk about this shit. I don't want to talk about politics. but it affects us all. Like, I'm still making this side list of things that are actual things that I can actually need to talk about. And COVID is one of them because for the last year, everybody's been gaslighting each other. Complete bullshit. Children. Like, I called myself a liberal 5 years ago. Today, I just cringe at the idea, at the term. Not because of anybody else who made it that way, but because of the liberals themselves, or people who call themselves liberals. Go ahead, call them neoliberals, whatever, Marxists. It's always some enemy. It's either the Marxists or the Nazis, and it's this battle between each other. I'm not wearing a mask. I am wearing a mask. People getting physical fights over what they think is true and what's not. What's new, right? I mean, just like it's always been. It's just so much more intense now. And nobody represents us, the people. We've got this feeble, crusty old dude in office who is, God, it's embarrassing. Like, I was just amazed when the last president was in office that more people who were conservatives didn't actually acknowledge that the guy was just a brute, regardless of whether he shook things up or not. I mean, he was just a moron. But then we have this guy now that's like can't even walk straight or formulate sentences. Like, I'm more than willing to admit that most of our presidents, if not all of them, have sucked, at least in my lifetime. It's pretty pathetic. It's pathetic the kind of people that end up making these decisions and being in charge. So it leads one to ask the question, why do we trust any of the elites or authority? Which gets me into a confusing, complicated. The way I feel about this is that, like somebody, this has been pointed out several times before. People talk about, well, I don't want people who are elite, or let's say, I don't want a politician in office. I want a guy who shakes things up, a guy who's not a politician. That's what a lot of people loved about Trump, right? Which is totally understandable. But somebody said, well, what happens when you want a doctor that's not just a doctor? You want to shake things up and hire a mechanic as a doctor, right? Or, um, you know, yeah, you have a surgeon, you've got to do brain surgery, and let's just at the last minute change it to some random dude because he's a little wilder. Like, that's not what you need. Just like politics or just like surgery, it's just social surgery. You're learning how people work and figuring out how to make people come together. A stronger nation means people are together. So any president who divides the nation has completely fucked up his whole sole purpose. Because, well, depending on how you look at it, I should say what a president should be doing is bringing the nation together. But it's set up and structured to where they don't. Biden does a fine job at just existing, which is all you can ask for at this point because things have been so brutal. But even with that, the powder keg's already gone over. People are already mad. They're still talking about Trump coming back in office in August, September. It just keeps getting pushed forward. We live in some weird times. And so I'm going to answer the rest of these questions, and I have a couple more, or read the rest of the comments. So that was my long-winded response to Meridian Heights asking whether I trust the science. I do trust science a lot. I would say I trust, like you said, 90%. I used to trust 90%. Now I'm getting down there to where I realize how much science is biased and bought out. But I trust the science that I read on the pages that I read, but it's hard to digest a lot of it, and we rely on other people too. All right, stick built. Hope you're well, Josh. Hope you're well too. Thank you. Conspiratards, you like that one? Shout out from Australia. Hey, Dean. Thanks, man. Yeah, I don't know how many Aussies. I don't know how many Aussies I have subscribed, actually. Shout out from over here. I'm on the west coast of the U.S., which means that we are in Fire Central. And y'all had plenty of fires over there, too. That's another subject I was going to talk about in a future podcast or live cast about the world burning and freezing and flooding at the same time. And that whole future is fucked up, but I guess we could get into that if you all want to. But Pacific Crest Trail, Eric, nice. Sounds like fun. Thank you, Meridian. Appreciate that. Oh, you said your angels and thoughts, and I was like, all right, I got angels, and you're like angles. Like, oh fuck, I don't have any angels. I just got angles. No, I'm just kidding. Robin says, don't get me started on liberals. Obama stopped Bernie from becoming president. Yeah. Fuck Obama. God, I used to really hope that the guy gave a shit. I really did. I cared. I voted for Obama. I thought, if anything, he's going to make change. But it was the same old crap. I am aware that he tried to pass over, a lot of bills, but that's a whole other story. So, yeah. So, I would like to, where was I here? Angels. Yeah. Opalite says, I think you should wear a mask if you're not vaccinated. Ah, in that case, I mean, we'll probably be wearing masks forever because I guess with that same reasoning, if we are truly spreading the virus through vaccinated people as well, that would mean that vaccinated people need to wear masks as well. In which case, I believe that the variants will continue to manifest over time because we're not vaccinating other countries. Therefore, they'll continue to run rampant, and in the long run, everybody will be wearing a mask for the rest of their lives. I'm not sure what to do about it. But I'm just hoping that if enough people get the Delta variant and it runs through society, at least the people who are out there and not worried about it, then maybe we can get over it sooner. You have to go by the UK model. The UK model showed that a couple of weeks after they opened up completely, it just started to decline. So, like I said, it depends on what science I guess we follow. That's a tough one. Dean says, Fire Central, major fire was 5 kilometers from being. Oh man, that sucks. You almost got fried, huh? Well, that's the wind saved your ass. I I live in the suburbs of basically it's north of Portland, Oregon, in Washington, so it's right over the bridge, over the Columbia River, the mighty Columbia, which separates the two. And we've had a lot of fires up here last year and this year, but fortunately this year, I mean, none of them are going to be able to get to my house because I don't live in a forested area. But if I were even living like 10 minutes east of here, it could be a totally different story. Um, I would imagine fires probably would never make it this far in, but I'm not going to guarantee that. Meridian, it'll burn itself out eventually. Yeah, it will. They all do. Fire is a natural part of life, and a healthy forest needs to burn. I've had a lot of discussions with people about different methods for dealing with fires, right? Do you dig a fire line, a permanent fire line somewhere in hopes that that's the right place? You can't predict the winds or the wind speed or the drought conditions. Basically, we're at the mercy of Earth. It's not our job to clean up the forest and make sure that it doesn't burn. That's how I feel. That we need to protect ourselves, not our forests, if that makes sense. Now, there are exceptions to the rule if people start the fires. Like in some places they did. Like in Greece, they're having a horrible time right now. And there are some who are claiming that those were started fires. And in a lot of places with politics going on, it's very possible they could be started to destabilize an area. Wildfire is used as a terrorism tool. It's an easy one. It doesn't take anything. And it's very difficult to really get to the bottom of what happened and how it started when it's a big fire. But these weather issues are going to continue getting worse. I will guarantee that. And I'm not trying to be alarmist. And it's not just that, it's vaccines, the whole virus thing. It really doesn't even matter. It all pales in comparison because we'll probably 5 years from now see another virus that will just kick the shit out of COVID. And it will probably, meanwhile, we won't even recognize it in time. And, something that had, say, a mortality rate of 50% or more, say another plague moved in, something we couldn't identify. Anything could happen at any time. And it's very easy for society to become destabilized. There was a time when even if one society collapsed, the survivors could say, take a boat overseas and go to a new place. Today everything is so interconnected in this just-in-time society that it's nearly impossible to separate ourselves from it. But life is just fucking weird. right? Good reason to wear masks indefinitely. Yeah, Robin, the thing about the masks and a point I wanted to make that I almost forgot is that, I've worn a mask everywhere for the last year and a half until the first day I walked into my local Fred Meyer store and I saw the cashier not wearing one. I instantly took mine right off. And I knew it was probably because she was vaccinated, but I'd had enough. Maybe I am selfish. Maybe that is selfish. I've been called selfish for it, so, whatever, so be it. But it just felt so freeing to not have to sweat in my own fucking mask while I'm shopping or working or walking or doing anything. But I refuse to wear them forever. I don't even know how effective they really are. Here's the thing: we not only we socially distanced, as well as worn masks, as well as closed down shops, and we also got the vaccines out, several different kinds. How do we know what did anything? I mean, we plus that's combined with the seasonal differences and fluctuations. I just don't feel like we're going to be able to look back on this with any real scientific accuracy for at least a couple of years. That's my thought. Maybe 3 to 5 years. Maybe by 2023, when they say other countries will start getting their vaccines, right? Nice, Dean. Yeah, the indigenous people should have the rights. Definitely. Hello, Nikki. Meridian says, I've heard that there's never been a successful vaccine against virus ever created. Well, which one? I don't know. It's, anything's possible. But a lot of people don't realize that the first polio vaccines were contaminated. And it's also believed that the HIV virus some of the earlier polio viruses were made from live monkey cells. Those monkey cells also contained HIV. Therefore, a lot of early polio vaccines. This is, I have to confirm this. It's been a couple of years since I've done this research, but I believe this is true. It's actually in a book I have. Said that those early polio viruses back in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, whatever it was, actually were made with they had another virus they weren't aware of, HIV, hadn't been identified yet. So they unwillingly injected this into thousands, tens of thousands of people, I don't know how many, meaning that the AIDS virus was spread by humans and vaccines, not by monkeys or gay people or somebody coming back from Africa. The original person who had it, or some of the earliest people were in the gay community, but it had to do with travel and who had first interacted, and that it was obviously more spreadable during, certain types of sex. Go on, you figure out the details, but it's unfortunate the gay community, got it so bad, and that they got blamed for it, because really it was the pharmaceutical industry that introduced it. But you know, it's something I can't say factually, because it's something I'd have to do a little more historical research back on. I have a book up here called, where is it? This book right here is called Spillover. It's by David Qualman. It's Animal Infections and the Next Human Pandemic. And I read this like right when COVID broke out. I wanted to find everything I could learn about vaccines, about viruses, the history of Ebola, of SARS-CoV-1, the original SARS, and it was kind of creepy, almost eerie in the book when they said that, it's much more likely that a more infectious strain will break out in the near future, probably a coronavirus or something similar. And it was, story. It was, it's an eye-opening book, highly recommended. But I learned a lot about how fucked up vaccines can be in there, and the mistakes that were made. such as using thimerosal, which was a mercury-like compound in vaccines for kids in the past. It's true. Some vaccines used to have heavy metals. This has since been changed. They don't do that anymore. But that leads one to say, well, what else is in there that we don't know? It's okay to be skeptical. And I feel like people really overstate their support of certain things just because their authorities tell them they should, rather than any critical research. Because even the people who are adamant supporters of certain, health practices, they get something even worse, which is a thought virus. You can see all those spike proteins sticking into your brain when you get sucked into the media bubble. You hear these stories repeated over and over and over, and you start to believe they're true. We all do it. But if you don't watch any media, if you don't listen to any stories, you don't get any information. Except for that, maybe that one random YouTuber who you watch every day, right? Like, if you're not watching, even at least looking at the actual stories themselves, even if they are presented by mainstream, then you can't compare them to what others are saying about the mainstream. Because even the alternative media makes all their money off of talking about what the mainstream said and then rebutting it, and it goes back and forth and back and forth. So pub beer. My beer's gone, and I'm about to retire. I'll stay on for another minute. It's almost been an hour, and I gotta go eat some dinner. So, it has been nice talking to you all, or rambling. It's really hot. It was 102 degrees in Portland today, and I'm in the back room, which doesn't have air conditioning. But there is AC in there, so I need to go back in there and get cool again. Meridian says, I know someone who's close to me that believes 100% that vaccines gave her son autism. I don't know. I do not personally believe that vaccines cause autism, but I do believe that the original studies, the ones that were promoted by, Jim Carrey, I believe, was one of them, if I'm not mistaken. And what was that other chick's name? McCarthy, Jenny McCarthy or something. And they did this whole thing about how it caused autism, and they were misreporting from a doctor who had a vested interest in some drug or whatever it was. He basically bullshitted his way into saying that the information that he had was correct, that it caused autism. Autism tends to be noticed around the same time as we get vaccines, so we correlate it. It may be possible that in some people it might trigger it, or we don't quite know how that works, but I don't really think that there's any evidence that it causes autism. I'm still not positive, though. I mean, I don't think anybody knows absolutely for sure, and that's just the thing. We're at the mercy of our science, right? Doctors, I mean, if you go to the doctor, you're trusting they know what the fuck they're doing. A lot of them don't. I mean, they know the basics, but you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Balance is a challenge. Yes, it is. More people are trickling in. Stay on a minute. Well, I can stay on a couple minutes. But I only have so much energy, and it's hot. I'll just take a bong hit real quick. I knew this would happen. My lighter died. It's so sad when your lighter dies. It really is. That's okay. Guess I didn't really need one anyway. I'll just vape instead. Maybe I'll just take a break real quick. I'll be right back. I'll tell you what. In the meantime, check this out. Think of it as an intermission, okay? I don't even know how much longer my phone's gonna last. Let's see. Oh, good. I got plenty of space. I'll be right back in like 2 minutes after I find a lighter. coming back. Yeah, I'm coming back, yo. Almost. Lucy, you're wet. The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. What a phenomenal book. Have you ever read it? Oh, God, no. It's super thick. It's a big book. It's pretty good, though. Put the camera back up here, or my phone, and hope that the volume's loud enough because I had issues earlier. So I'll be here for a few more minutes. I'm refreshed. I had to go to the bathroom, grab another beer, and borrow my wife's lighter for a moment. Before I continue, I should process some of what y'all have said here. Make sure I... What? Oh, your dad. That was fun. Horrible. I read Meridian. It says, oh, woo, bull hit. Mine died tonight. I thought you said my dad died tonight. I was like, what? That's horrible. Okay, Nikki says, I didn't get your notification. Just happened to see your live pop up. I love your lives. Thank you, Nikki. And thank you for also informing me that it didn't show up as a notification because, like I said, YouTube censors anything that talks about viruses, anything that talks about conspiracies, anything that talks about anything. And from a guy who's liberal, left-leaning, and kind of laughs at a lot of conspiracies, I'm just like, you're doing yourself no justice by not letting people talk about the lab leak theory or vaccine dangers or any of this. It's not going to help anything by trying to hide it. In fact, a lot of creators just moved to Odyssey, like a Dark Horse podcast, which is Brett Weinstein and his wife Heather Haying. They're pretty good. He makes me cringe sometimes. He's obsessed with talking about the left and censorship and big tech, and like he's like an evolutionary biologist, but now he got sucked into all the controversial stuff because it's really popular. If I were to say tomorrow, turn Carpo 719, change the channel name to, you know, kickliberalsasses.com or something, anything controversial, it's going to attract an audience. People are going to want to hear about it. The problem is it brings in a bunch of toxic extremists too. And Brett is like very balanced. He's not like a dumb liberal, but he's not a conservative. He's a very well-spoken person, but he's been talking about this COVID shit and had the same censorship issues happen to him. And so you don't know the videos. Let me put it this way. When people talk about trusting the experts on COVID, you don't know the experts that you can't hear. You can't know which experts or which doctors or scientists are A, either censored, or B, afraid to speak out. And this is why it does no justice to try to cover up what people are saying. Let them speak it. The truth will show itself eventually. You're not doing a disservice or danger to society. I guess I could back up and say I'd eat my words, because when I talked about people like, for example, Alex Jones, he caused real-world harm by denying Sandy Hook, for example. And parents were getting death threats. It was making people's lives miserable. He was actually causing harm. But in this case, we don't really know for sure how much harm is being caused. There's no measurable effect by people having different opinions on this. I feel if people are you can't hide misinformation by censoring it. It just goes through other channels, makes people more suspicious of what you're hiding. That's all. Hello, Logic Zone. It's good to see you, my friend. I hope you're doing well. Pass the bowl. Carpo, you should find some drive-in intermissions for moments like... Yeah. That'd be funny. My cell phone's too fucking old. I'm throwing an event with 100 participants, and it's crazy to me I can have this much control over people with little tape. What? With the little tablet? Yeah, totally. Technology is fucking wild, isn't it? Thanks, Eric. Murky says, switch on monetization and notifications will go out, or so I've heard. You're probably correct. I cannot switch on monetization because I cannot monetize this channel. I only have AdSense and monetization with my main channel. Unfortunately, I'm afraid to put up this on my main channel because I'm talking about a controversial topic. This might actually get my channel deleted by even talking about it. So I put it on the secondary channel. And it's unfortunate because I'd like to actually promote this on my main channel where I could get donations and shit. But there's always Patreon or PayPal or whatever if somebody wants to. But I just hate buying into the whole fact that I have to watch what I say. You know what I mean? I don't have any strong opinions one way or the other. I'm just honest with how I feel. That's all. So now I have to complete my use of my lighter. I wanted to talk about mushrooms. Not those kind of mushrooms. Wild mushrooms like reishi. I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, but they have been shown to have some wonderful effects against viruses and bacteria, and specifically SARS-CoV-2. There were some recent studies done on SARS, I believe the original one, but our ancestors have been taking, mushrooms for tens of thousands of years. I think that one of the old guys they found trapped in ice, who was like 10,000 years old, they found him with like a loin cloth and a little bag. He was frozen in ice. Sorry. In that bag, he had some polypore mushrooms. Polypores are also what you would call shelf fungus. It's those ones you see growing off like a shelf off a tree. In order for those to survive, they have to have strong antimicrobial and antiseptic antibiotic properties and immunomodulating properties when it comes to taking them for humans. But I think the funny thing was not that people were taking them that long ago, but that just the people were aware of the benefits of something that long ago. And how humans have evolved with plants. There have been poultices, concoctions, teas, tinctures, everything you can imagine for various illnesses through, the millennia. And then we pop into the 20th century and the 21st century, and all of a sudden modern medicine becomes the solution for everything. Now, look, I'm not denying that there are some amazing new breakthroughs in medicine, technology, science, including vaccines, which are extremely amazing tools for helping society overcome some illnesses that might destroy us as a species, right? Just eradicating certain diseases. It's just amazing we can do that. But I don't think we'll ever really completely eradicate them. But let's just say that our ancestors had it a little more difficult than we do when it comes to disease. Uh, Back in the day when you can cut yourself on like a rusty nail and die from it. But there are limits to it, and there's a certain arrogance that comes with having this technology that makes us believe that we are superior to others, that we are superior to other cultures, that our technology is better. Look what we can do. I think I want to give you the perfect example. It just popped into my head, and I haven't thought of this in several years. There's a book called Deep Survival. Actually, come to think, I'm not sure if it's in that book or not. Maybe it was a different one. No, I think this was in a book called Guns, Germs, and Steel. And he also wrote another one called, what is it? Phenomenal author. Um, Jared, Jared Diamond. Jared Diamond. He's a phenomenal author. And he wrote a book called Guns, Germs, and Steel. They did adapt it into a documentary or a show, I believe, years ago. He talked about how guns, germs, and steel were the three things that helped humans get ahead, or fall behind. Guns in the sense that if you have the weapons, you can dominate the land. Germs in the sense that if you bring smallpox to America, you can kill off all the inhabitants. And steel, as in what materials you have, determine what you can do with those materials. But if you have good swords, if you have shields, things like that. But he talked in there about that. He talked about how Americans, or not Americans, was it British, originally discovered when they went down to Papua New Guinea, right? And they saw that the people were just living kind of in the jungle. When they had lived on the shores like white people for a long time before they even made it inland. Like they'd lived there for years before they even were able to get over the mountains to the inner valley because it's like a cauldron kind of thing. The people who lived there had been growing food their own way for a long time, thousands of years. They were one of the oldest civilizations. They were doing just fine. Along come the white guys and they're like, hey, oh, by the way, you should be planting this way. Let me show you how to do terracing. So they go up on the hillsides and they show them how to terrace by digging these long terraces all along the mountainsides and then plant all their rice and vegetables. The very first heavy rains that come, there's no roots in the ground, and all that mud just washes down into the village, destroys their crop, destroys their farms, and kills a bunch of people. The point and the moral of the story is that all of your technology and intention and awareness of how things work don't always turn out the way you anticipate. And some people have figured shit out for themselves, right? It's there's a reason why very old school techniques endure. That's the reason why old medicines are still important. Was my long way of saying that I believe that we should be seeking out those herbal medicines that actually can benefit us. It's the reason I still love taking kratom, why I take mushrooms and mushroom extracts, cannabis. There are several different compounds in these plants that some people find beneficial. So I'm not saying that it's a cure. Believe me, I'm not saying that it's going to cure you of COVID or stop you from getting sick by taking anything. I just think that there are natural ways to boost your immune system that could definitely benefit you just as much as some other things. And that's pretty much all I got. Those are my thoughts on it all, I guess. Logic says, Carpo, have you heard of the term reification? God damn it, I'm getting old. I hate that. Reification? Oh, yeah, reification. It's an anthropology term, which basically means that, yeah, the culture and beliefs are created through, God damn it, these glasses suck. Created through sheer repetition, as in anything could be anything if repeated. Well, I haven't heard of the term, but it makes sense to me. I mean, repetition is basically ingrained within who we are. We love our cycles, we love our routines, and we love our rituals. We love to dance around the fire and do various, like I mentioned before, doing coming of age parties, things like that. But yeah, I don't know. I suppose. I mean, olive leaf extract, huh? I haven't heard of that one. Yeah, thanks. Fantastic fungi. I think I've seen that one. Yeah. I haven't heard lately about Paul Stamets bee saving thing. Has anyone heard about the results of what's happened? No. No, it's a weird world and there's a lot of problems out there and it's definitely difficult to navigate. I don't know what to think anymore about anything. I really don't. I mean, I have my opinions on shit, my own philosophy, but it's amazing how much my mentality's changed over the last decade and since the previous decade and the decade before that, constantly becoming new people. Strange. I wanted to mention something about people who lie. I was talking earlier about the potential for people to be lying to us, whether it be authority, elite, politicians, scientists, whoever it might particularly be in a situation. I thought, what are the reasons why people lie? I wanted to narrow it down in my own mind. A lot of people these days, it seems like we just Google everything. I think it's important not to like think up things on our own, right? Because there's always somebody else who has a list. My list is four simple things. Four simple people lie. Either they have something to gain, or something to lose, or they have something to hide, or something to prove. And you could almost say that something to prove would be the same as something to show, which would be like gain, but it's different. This means that there's people out there who want to profit. That's something to gain. There's a lot of us out there who don't want anything from other people. Like, I have no intention of ever harming anyone or ripping anyone off or telling anyone how to live their life. I just don't care. As long as it's not harming me or mine, right? But there are people who want to have something to gain. So they will pull one over on you to get that. But there's also people who lie because they have something to lose. And in the case of politicians, for example, or in government, or any of these situations where the people are lied to, it's because they want to save face because they're going to lose the respect of the people, and they might lose their power. It's almost worse to hang on to that than anything else. Trying to hang on to power is, you know, very iffy. But then there are, as I said, hide and prove. Some people have things to hide, but they don't want anybody to know. That's an obvious reason to lie. And others that have something to prove. In other words, telling people that they're stronger than they are or tougher than they are, making up stories. Generally, the hide and prove, at least the prove aspect, doesn't really mean much. It's not harming anyone. But when people lie to the public, when they are in the public eye, whether they be scientists or politicians or doctors or anyone else, people start to lose trust in entire institutions. And that's what's happening right now. People have lost respect for even the experts of experts. And there is no plan B or alternative. So people are literally moving to getting their information from random people on the internet and purposefully dispelling any science or facts because it doesn't agree with what they want to believe. It's hard not to sometimes when you're lied to a lot. I can see that. But if we don't trust somebody, we're screwed, right? Well, I'd say if you want to trust somebody, trust yourself. Trust yourself to make the best decisions you can. Trust yourself to make it through this life and protect those you love. Some of you may be single, some of you may be couples, some of you may be married or not, or have kids or not. Everybody's unique situation, is. I just feel like COVID is really revealing how weak we are as a society. And it's scary because when the next thing comes, what are people going to do? Run around and panic again? I mean, how much of this will people be able to endure? What happens when a real disaster or calamity hits? So being lied to sucks. But unfortunately, the art of lying has honed itself so well that we don't even know what people are lying about anymore. So anyhow, that's about all I've got for today. I want to go eat now and hang out with my family and watch a movie or something. And yeah, as I mentioned, my oldest son, he got the vaccine earlier today, so he said he was feeling a little bit down for a while, but he's feeling better now. That's good. Um, I didn't want him to feel like he shouldn't, you know. To each his own is what I said. We talked about this a lot in our family, and that's just the thing. It shouldn't be an issue where you tell other people what they should or shouldn't do. People need to be aware and make decisions for themselves. I mean, God, some people are so rude these days. Hmm. So if you haven't hit the like button, make sure you do that. It might help YouTube not censor my shit, or it might just make it worse. And I appreciate all of you coming to visit. Robin says she was tired after her vaccine for weeks. See, that's what I'm worried about. I've heard that the second dose can be much worse usually than the first if you get a two shot. That's what kind of worries me because I'm like, well, that's because your body didn't really recognize it the first time, but by the second time you built antibodies to it, so it notices it right away. And I don't know. Ah, like I said, I've never been so torn about something in my life. I want to do the right thing. I want to protect my neighbors and my society, but I also want to protect myself. I don't know if the spike proteins in these vaccines have any long-term consequences or damage on the human body. I don't know if why the FDA hasn't approved them yet. It's unfortunate that we can't file a lawsuit or have no basically recourse if something does go wrong with them. And D, it's just not been long enough for me to really see. And so maybe by next year or the year after. My suspicion is this is going to be like the flu. Maybe more severe from deaths, but by the time the variants work their way out, the thing is, a virus wants to survive. The variants that survive are the ones that can spread. If it kills you too fast, it disappears. If it doesn't infect you enough, it disappears. It are the variants generally get weaker over time, and the flu, just like after the 1918 flu, ever since, some people say that might have been the year where it really started becoming the norm. Um, they may all be variants and descendants from that strain. And just like every year, you get a flu shot, right? Well, some people do. But it might not work because you can still get it because there are several different strains going at any one time. And I wish the CDC would acknowledge this. I wish that the media would acknowledge this. I wish the government that we pay, to be honest, would acknowledge the fact that we're not quite sure about some of these things. Instead of being so cocksure and the media just keeps repeating the same bullshit over and over. And so we're all obligated to talk about it. It's a tough one. So I'm sorry that Robin, that you feel tired weeks after your vaccine. That sucks. The thing is, I also wouldn't want it to be like a placebo effect or me to think I'm going to get sick or feel shitty. So there's, you've heard of placebo where you take a medicine and you think it works, so it works. Well, there's also nocebo where if you think something's harming you, then it harms you. So, you also got to have a positive attitude regardless. So, I got that mRNA and was around somebody in a social setting with a cough. It was trippy. 12-hour reaction and feel okay now. Good. Eric said he felt okay. All right. See, and that's the beauty. I don't fault any of you for getting one. In fact, like I mentioned the other day, Brett and Heather on the Dark Horse podcast were talking about that. They urge anybody who's compromised or older to get it. But, I really don't. I think that they should take any vaccines they're going to give to young kids and send them overseas. I mean, since it's going to spread anyway. Right now, we need to protect as many people as we can. But I understand that nationalism runs the day, and that's just how it is. So, gotta go. Ended up being longer than I should have. I could go on, but I won't. Peace and love. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you all next time. Be well. Take care of each other and all that shit.